There's a saying in art and actually in everything that goes, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And what that saying means, when we use the word flattery, if someone flatters you, that means they say something complimentary about you that makes you feel good. So imitation, being the sincerest form of flattery, basically means if you're imitating somebody or their style, well, that's a big compliment because it means you like what they're doing. So one of the things we hear in art a lot, especially like in the younger grades, people be drawing, and if it's an assignment where you can make whatever you want, well, maybe I'm drawing this, maybe you're drawing that, and I'll oftentimes hear people go, he's copying me, she's copying me. And when I hear that, oftentimes I'll use that phrase. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So what that means is if they're copying you, if they're drawing the same thing you're drawing, then they must think your drawing is pretty good. So that's like a good thing, right? Anyway, the reason I bring this up, I've got another student art video coming out later this week, and I noticed one of my kindergartners has actually done her own version of an artwork that one of my fourth graders did on the last student art video, which I thought is really cool. I also thought it was interesting because I actually wanted to do my own version of one of that kindergartner's artworks, and I'm going to show that to you right now. This little popcorn guy, Brenly made that for our last student art video, and so I don't know, something about this character I just like really love. It's one of those anthropomorphic things, so you're taking something, that's a big word, but all it means is you're taking something that wouldn't normally have human features, and you're giving it human features. So a bag of popcorn with a face is not something you'd see in real life, and yet here we have it, right? So anyway, I really enjoy this, and I'm going to imitate it. I'm going to make my own version of it. Now, this is something artists do all the time. In fact, they say no art exists in a vacuum. So anything you create is obviously influenced by things you like in your own style. But sometimes artists also just outright make their own version of something, and that's what I'm about to do. Sometimes you hear that called appropriation. I'm using somebody else's creation in my own. That's fine. So I'm going to appropriate this popcorn artwork right here and make my own version of it. So here we go. I've got my paper. I'm thinking I'm going to sketch this out and then I'm going to paint it. And I might add some charcoal to it too. We'll see where it goes. But yeah, I just really like this little popcorn character, so I'm going to just do my own version of it right now. I'm going to basically try to keep the design pretty much the same. I'm going to add a little bit of three-dimensionality to it. So right here from the original artwork, we see I was trying to figure out, is it a bag or a bucket of popcorn? And I'm pretty sure it's a bag because you see that wavy line up over the eyes. So if it's going to be a bag of popcorn, I'll sketch out the basic shape of it here. I think I'm going to sketch out kind of the side of it too. Like I said, make it a little bit three-dimensional here. So maybe here's the side of our bag. And I'm generally, like, my style, I'm attracted to things that are pretty simple. I always like pretty simplistic, because simple doesn't mean bad in any way. Things that are simple are easy to understand. You look at them, you get them. And this is a very simple character design, but I just really like it a lot. I think it's cute with the tongue out and the eyes. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. So we'll see. I'm going to try to keep it the way she's got it. So she's got 5 stripes, 2 red, and 3 white. So maybe let's figure out how our stripes are going to go. And I'm making some little lines down here just to kind of plan them out because I want all the stripes to be just about even. So I need to find kind of the right spacing before I actually draw the lines. Otherwise, I'm going to end up having to erase over and over and over. And that'd be a huge pain, and it would look terrible. So there we go. That looks about right. That's room for 5. Let's come up here to the top. And go straight across right here. So that's basically the shape of the front of our bag. The side should tilt up at the same angle as it does here. So if that's going this way, that's going to go the same way. And of course, we'll have all the, what I envision is this character's hair, which is the popcorn. Just reads like hair to me, is going to be up there. So I could draw the inside of the bag, but I don't really need to because it's about to be full of popcorn anyway. Cool, cool, cool. All right, so let's do the same thing at the bottom here. I've split that into 5 spaces, so let's kind of make sure we have 5 roughly even spaces. And those aren't roughly even, which is why I'm figuring them out first. 1, 2, 3. This is one of the things that confuses people sometimes. If I want 5 stripes, I don't actually need to draw 5 lines. I only need to draw 4 lines, and that'll give me 5 stripes. So that looks pretty close to even. So let's sketch out. I actually had a ruler over here, but I feel like I don't really want it to be perfectly straight. Because again, her original drawing is hand drawn. It has some kind of organic detail to it. So I figure instead of making perfectly straight lines with a ruler, let's just sketch them out so they have a little bit of variation to them, since her original character had that. Cool, cool, cool. Not too bad. I think maybe I have room for like 3 stripes on the side. Since it's the side view, the stripes would be a little bit thinner, which is fine. And again, they're going to tilt kind of diagonally as well. Maybe something like that. Cool. All right, there's our bag. Let's go ahead and add in the face. So we basically have 2 really big eyes that are basically circles, and then we got a little mouth with the tongue sticking out. So up near the top, I'll go ahead and sketch out the eyes, and I'm going to try to put them about in the same place. I'm going to make them really nice and big. There we go. And I'm thinking, even though I'm going to paint most of this, I'm thinking I'm going to do the eyes probably with a Sharpie marker, just so it's really nice and dark black. I think I'm going to use watercolor paint, and watercolor, even if you put on several coats, it always tends to look gray instead of black. All right, cool. So we got our eyes. I can see she's got some little reflections in there. And actually, I'm going to even try to do the reflections the same way. It seems like there's a central reflection and then another one almost kind of coming out behind it. So maybe we'll do one here. And then a bigger one. Take it out from the back. There we go. Maybe something like that. And the mouth is actually right in between the eyes. It's not down below, it's kind of right in between. And it's in that middle stripe, so I have my little mouth. And I think that's one of the things that makes this character so cute, is the fact that the mouth is really tiny, and it's also in between the eyes instead of way down below. So let's make our mouth right here. Simple little curve shape. And actually, I mean, that's starting to look pretty cute as is. But since she's got the tongue out, let's go ahead and let's keep that going on. Get the little tongue sticking out right here. This has got to be a little zany, you know what I mean? You know what I mean. Loving it. Cool. Get that little center piece. That's the face. Okay, I'm liking it. And then for her popcorn up on the top, she's just got, basically a whole bunch of little bumpy popcorn-y looking shapes. But before we do those, we need to add that kind of wavy line. The edge of her bag wasn't straight. It was kind of a wavy line, so let's go ahead and add that in. Yeah, something kind of like that. So we'll do the same thing over here. But of course, it'll be diagonal. Okay. Cool, cool. Let's add the popcorn. And each one is just a couple of curves, 3 or 4 little curves. And I'm thinking I'll just paint them all with like a solid yellow color, and then maybe go back, like I said, with a charcoal or a pencil or something and add in a little bit of detail. But we'll see. But first things first, let's get these popcorns filled in. So she's really just got kind of these repeating bumpy curvy shapes. So we'll do the front ones first, and then we'll use overlapping to make them look like they're going further back. kind of the same way I would typically draw clouds, which, hey, makes sense. It's the shape of popcorn. It's a bunch of curvy bumps, right? That's what it is. Cool, cool. I'm making mine a little bit bigger than hers, just so I have enough room, so I have enough space to really do what I want with it. Which also has the effect of making the overall bag look smaller. So maybe this is like the baby bag of popcorn, the really small guy. Couple more and I think we're good. Maybe that's it for there. One more right here. We good? Do I need one more? She's got hers with like kind of higher, more pieces on one side. Should I do that? I guess so. Well, I'm getting lots of emails here. Let's see. We'll add one more right here. Does that mean we need one more here, though? Probably. We gotta have it balanced. One more? What do we think? There we go. Yeah, now it's a little higher up on the right side, same way she's got it. Cool. I'm digging it. Hers is a little thinner at the bottom and wider at the top, but that's okay. I think it's definitely the same vibe. So next step is going to be to take that and add some paint. So I need to go get my paints ready. So I'll pause that right there. And I'll be right back with some paints. All right. Got my paint palette. Got some watercolor paints I'm going to use. Got some paint brushes. Here we go. So first things first, I'm going to test out some colors. And let's see how just that plain old yellow looks. I feel like it might be a little bit too yellow for what I'm trying to make. So let's see. The question is, should the popcorn be lighter than that? It looks pretty close to the color of hers. The only way to make watercolors lighter is to add water, because of course water is clear. So if I painted clear water, it would look white on white paper. So if I put a little bit of color in the water, it should make my color look a little bit lighter. I know I'm going to have to do this to make pink for the tongue. As long as I spread it out enough, as you can see, that yellow is a little bit lighter, and I feel a little bit better about that. I feel like that looks closer to her popcorn color, so that's what we're going to use. Cool. Always nice to have like a test piece of paper. You don't want to ruin what you just made. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and start filling in my popcorn. Now, there's a couple things you got to know when you're working with watercolor. The first thing is, if you don't want colors to blend together, you have to let them fully dry before you put another color next to it. So here's what I mean by that. If I painted my popcorn yellow, and then I went and started painting these stripes red, that yellow and red would blend together and turn orange right on the seam here where the red turns into yellow. It's just how watercolor works. It's going to happen no matter what, unless you let the first color fully dry. Now, if you want colors to blend, that's one of those strongest parts of watercolor, is that you can blend colors really easy. If you want them to blend, hey, go ahead and do that. You don't have to wait at all. But if you don't want them to mix together, it's really important to let your first color fully dry. So I'm going to go ahead and paint my yellow for the popcorn. I'm going to go ahead and paint my pink for the tongue here. I'm going to then take a break and let those totally dry before I start doing the red. So let's start on yellow. Now, another thing that can be kind of annoying about watercolor, and again, if you want this look, that's fine, is that as you paint, it's going to start to dry. And then you're going to have like a splotchy look. So if you want it to all look the exact same solid color, you got to paint kind of quick and make sure it stays wet so it can all dry at once. Again, if that's the look you're going for. Most of the time when you're working with watercolor, you just want to kind of embrace that look where it's not all going to be the exact same color. But we'll see. We'll see if I'm able to get something that dries kind of as one uniform solid color. So let's start painting. I'm going to kind of trim around my edge first. Once you've got the edges done, filling in the middle parts is no big deal at all. And again, I want to make sure I'm really spreading this color out, because if I'm not spreading it out, it's always going to appear kind of brighter or darker, however you want to think of it, than it really is. Make sure I take from the right paint. So spread, spread, spread. If I'm trying to spread a bigger area, a bigger brush is a good idea. Spread, spread, spread. Okay, so this area over here is done. Let's start trimming our outlines. That's one of the things that's so nice about painting compared to coloring with a colored pencil or with a marker. Don't get me wrong, I love colored pencils, I love markers, I love crayons. But painting is so much easier and quicker to fill in big spaces because all you got to do is spread your paint out. It's just so satisfying to fill a space in really nice and quick, and it looks super solid, and you don't super have to be careful about going back and getting your white spots. As long as you're spreading it out, you're going to be fine. One of the things I love about painting. The other thing, of course, I love about painting is how easy the colors blend together. They blend super easily. Now, in this particular painting, I'm not trying to blend colors. But when you do, it works really, really easily. Should I try to blend colors? I mean, it'd be kind of cool to do like maybe a little bit of orange mixing in with my yellow. But I think I'm just going to keep it kind of solid colors. When she colored hers, she used basically one color per part. So I'll keep mine like hers. We'll keep the popcorn yellow. Like I said, I already think I'm going to go back and add a little bit of shadows and stuff. Maybe with a graphite pencil or a charcoal. So for now, I'm probably good to go on color. Cool. Popcorn looks great. And now again, if I started painting my red, even if I was really, really careful, even if I was super careful to make sure I didn't let any red actually touch the yellow, just because of the way watercolor works, it'll blend into the paper. It's going to turn orange there. So I've got to wait for that yellow to be totally, totally dry before I do anything. While I'm waiting on that, let's go ahead and figure out our tongue. So now I know I don't want to use red for the tongue. I'm probably just going to use plain old red for the stripes on the bag. But the tongue's got kind of a pinkish look to it. So pink is nothing but light red. I'm going to take a ton of water and just maybe literally just one drop of red. And ooh, that red looks brown. That's not what I want at all. Uh-oh. Let's see what we can do with this. Will it look brown on paper? It does look brown on paper. Uh-oh. Maybe I mixed in some of the wrong color. All right, well, we're gonna have to see what we can do about that. Actually, for pink, that's not bad, but it's not as bright as I want it. So I'm gonna have to figure that out. So for now, let's let our yellow go ahead and start drying. And I'm going to go see if I can find some other kind of red to use that's a little bit brighter than that. Be right back. All right, we've got more of what we need. There we go. And that red is showing up just how I want it. So that's going to be the color for my red on the bag. But of course, I don't want to do the bag yet because, again, even that yellow is still a little bit wet. Like, it's not dripping or anything, but you really want to make sure if you don't want your colors to blend together that it's super, super dry. So the only other thing I'm going to paint right now is my pink. So let's try to make a pink. I'm going to start by filling up one of those with some water. Already got a little bit of red in there by accident, but I don't think it's going to show very much. Actually, I think just the amount of red on my brush was like perfect. So if I spread that out, is it too dark to be pink? Yeah, I liked it better when it was lighter. So maybe I'll just pour out some new water and just dip my brush right in there. I think that's going to be perfect, actually. I don't even need it any darker than that. Tiny little bit of red that was already on my brush is going to do it just fine. And in my tongue. There we go. And it's definitely not too dark. I'd say that's definitely a pink and not a red, which is what we're going for. Cool. So I'm going to let all of that super dry. Then I'm going to go back, paint the red stripes, let that super dry, and then maybe do some detailing with like light and shadow. But I think for now, I just need to give this a good long time to get all the way dry. So that's what I'm going to do. So we'll put this little guy right here, and I'm just going to let it dry. All right. The yellow and the pink is nice and dry, totally not even a hint of, wet on there. We're good to go. Let's go ahead and paint our red stripes. And then again, I'm going to do the eyes, I think, with a black Sharpie. It looks like she did the eyes with a marker too, so I think that'll just make it stand out better. And now that it's nice and dry, I don't have to worry at all about this blending where I don't want it to blend. Hopefully. We'll see how this works. This is a different red than I typically have, so I'm actually not sure how it's going to work. It looks like it's absorbing into the paper totally differently, actually. That's all right. You got to use what you got. We're all at home. If I was in the art classroom, I'd probably have all the choice of materials I always do, but I'm not. So we got to use what we got. Yeah, this seems to dry actually much quicker. That's okay. I think it still definitely looks like a red stripe, so we're gonna be all right. We'll work with it. Oh, weird. It's just as liquidy, but it definitely absorbs into the paper differently. I'm seeing it kind of spread out more as it dries, which probably means my red's going to go a little bit outside of its lines, but that's all right too. It is, however, a nice bright red. That's good. All right, let's connect these up. The color matters so much, doesn't it? Bringing this thing to life. Cool. And I guess I'll keep the pattern we had going, white, red, white, red. So this is the corner over here, white. So let's make, why am I flipping it? I don't know. It just feels more natural to paint that way for some reason to me. So we'll put this as red. We got a big old puddle in here since it's such a thin little stripe. So let's try to spread it out as quickly as possible, so it all doesn't dry up all at once. My lines really aren't perfectly straight, but hey, they weren't perfectly straight when I drew it anyway. That's all right too. feel like I say that a lot when I'm making art. You know what? That's all right. Because it is. Everything's gonna be just fine. Nothing ever turns out exactly 100% like you expect. But if it's close enough, you're doing fine. I think that's a art rule and a life rule. Nothing's ever gonna go quite exactly the way you think. But most of the time it's close enough. And you're gonna be fine most of the time. Even when you think you're not. Turns out most of the time, in the long run, you are. Okay. So those side stripes might be a little bit darker. That's okay. They're probably going to get some more dark on them in a little bit anyway. So I'm going to let that super dry, and then I'll go ahead and hit the Sharpie, and then we'll see about maybe doing a little shadow or something. Graphite, charcoal, probably charcoal. Charcoal smooths out easier than graphite. Or maybe sometimes I like using both. Let's see. Anyway, first thing we got to do right now is let that guy sit there and dry, and then we'll keep working on it. All right, the red is dry. Let's start detailing. So again, I'm going to do the eyes just with a Sharpie. So they're nice and bold and dark. Also, it gives me a little bit more control using a Sharpie instead of a paintbrush. Step one, as always, try to get them the right size. I think I failed at that. That one definitely looks bigger right off the bat. So let's go back and try that again. Make this one a little bit bigger. You can always go bigger. You cannot go smaller. Well, let's see what that looks like once they're filled in. Okay. And that's already really standing out, which is exactly what we wanted. Now, one of the questions I had about this particular piece, you guys know if you've been watching, when I draw these cartoony style characters, I tend to kind of put like a thick black outline around everything. I'm trying not to do that for this one just because I feel like I always do that. But my question kind of becomes, what do we do here with the mouth, right? Because if I'm not going to outline everything with Sharpie, should I go ahead and outline the mouth with Sharpie or should I leave it? I'm really not sure. So I'm thinking I'm going to leave it like it is for now. And then later, once everything else is done, once I'm done with my charcoal, I can always go back and add if I need to add. All right, let's see. Are those anywhere near the same size? Get a little light in here. This one's a little bit bigger. Also, this one's just less circular. It has like kind of flat sides on it. So let's make this a little bit rounder if we can. I just made it a little bumpier, whatever. And then we'll make this a little bit bigger to match. Just a little more. Get them at least as close as we can get them to matching. All right, I'm satisfied. Cool. Now we could really just stop right there. But you know that's not how we do things. All right, so we're going to add a little bit of charcoal on this to give it a little bit of depth. I'm thinking it'll probably look best up here in the popcorn. So maybe let's do our light source kind of over here. Just kind of standard. To the left side it'll be darker, toward the bottom it'll be darker. And let's see what that does. I've got some tortillons and of course my fingers as blending tools. We're gonna see what we get. I just like to start with my fingers. Just because, you know, it's part of you. So it's easier to control. And I feel like the tortillons are better for like when you need that really, really fine level of control, like really small detailed. For this, I'm perfectly comfortable just kind of... Actually, that little bit right there, I think did a lot. I think that makes a lot of difference, if I'm being honest. I like it. I don't know why there's that little dark spot right there. I don't know if I'm going to do any more than that on the front. I like the way that looks. All right. Let's see what we can do. I mean, I'm going to add a little on the tongue, I think, but let's see what we can do for the side over here. So this side would be kind of more in the shadows. This whole thing's going to be a little darker over here. Let's see what happens. Now, obviously, I'm going to have to go back a bit and erase. Because when you do charcoal, it goes all over the place. Leaving a little bit of a lighter bit by the bottom. Maybe a little reflected light there. And we'll blend that out into this side too. Not bad. Not bad. I kind of like it. Erase out what we don't need. And your inclination is to, you know, rub your hand across the paper to get rid of the little eraser bits, but that will smear charcoal everywhere. So I'm going to try to avoid that instinct. Maybe that type of thing. That's all right. That's not too bad. I might add a little bit more dark in just a moment, but let's add a tiny, tiny little touch. I'm going to use my tortillon for this, actually, which is where? Here's one. Do I have another one? Here's one. We'll use this guy. Let's get a little charcoal on that to prime it and get it started. I don't think we need to get any more in depth than that, do we? Probably not. We're back to the question of should the mouth have marker on it? I think at this point it probably should. Should I have a little bit of a shadow behind the tongue? I think at this point maybe I should. Can I just barely erase that little dark spot I don't like? Wow, it kind of worked. It kind of worked. So I'm going to add a little more shadow to the side in just a moment. I think at this point I've decided this needs to be Sharpie. Yep. So should I go ahead and Sharpie? Am I just going to end up Sharpieing this whole thing? No, I refuse. I'm going to do one artwork where I don't Sharpie every single part of it. But again, it's a look that I like for cartoon characters. And I think this little guy right here qualifies. Okay. Should we add a little? Yeah, let's add a little shadow behind the tongue. And you know what? I'm going to use this darker pencil for this. that worked out okay, I think, in my opinion. Get a little bit of that down here on the bottom. Yeah. I like that little pop of dark there. I don't like my hand. I'm just smearing everything. I don't like my hand mark though. Okay. I think our face looked pretty good. Okay. Smeared this too. Let's blend that back out. All right. So maybe I'll mess with the popcorn a little bit and then add like overall shadow. And then I think we're done. And then I think we are done with this. Yeah. All right, so let's start messing with the popcorn. Now what I wanted to do was be able to kind of work with each little piece individually. But I think I'm going to start with just a little bit of general down by the bag area. Kind of just a general shadow type deal. And then we can work with some specific shadows in just a minute. So let's start with a general shadow type deal. That's what we want. Go back and erase my bag so the shadow's just on the popcorn, not on the bag. Bend that guy in a little. Okay, so there's a starting point. Let's get specific. Do I start on this side? No, that'd be a terrible idea. I start on this side. Okay. So how are we going to erase out? It's going to be a fine balance between erasing and drawing. Okay. And maybe for my details, I'll use this little touch of darker. This pencil I've got here does not blend as easily as the vine charcoal I'm using, the little charcoal stick. But sometimes you want that. Sometimes you don't want it to blend as easy. Makes it a little bit more controllable. You know, so you can do stuff like this. That actually works pretty well. That's kind of what I was looking for. I'm a little surprised it worked, but it did. Right? That way I can give each little piece of popcorn a little bit of its own light and shadow action. And as we move from here to here, maybe we'll do a little bit less of that. This is the shadowed side in general. So maybe we won't be adding quite as much of the darker values as we move back across our piece. Okay. Cool. First layer is there. All right, second layer. Same idea, but we don't want it to be quite as intense. So I'm just going to load up a little bit of charcoal on my finger. add in kind of a basic tone. Erase out my highlights. Then use my charcoal pencil to add a little bit more of those darker values back in. But again, we don't want to totally go nuts with this. Easy is gonna do it. Alright, we'll see what that does. Yep, a little bit of that goes a really long way. Goodness gracious. A tiny bit of that goes a very, very long way. And I used way too much because now this looks way darker than the other one. All right, we're gonna have to figure it out. We're gonna have to figure that out. All right, so where do we need? Let's get a little bit more, like on the bottom spot of these pieces, where it's going behind, and try to level it out a little bit. There's just way too much charcoal on the paper. Way too much. Way too much. We'll start blocking in our next pieces, and then we'll see about going back and messing around. It's starting to have a little bit of dimension, though. We can save this. We can save this. It's not a complete disaster. I mean, it kind of is now. It can be fixed. It can be recovered. Nothing is ever done until we say it's done. And this ain't done. A little bit of that into here. All right, let's try to erase some little highlights out. Just a little bit, give this a little bit more form. Okay, we're gonna keep going. I'm not gonna super worry about getting everything totally perfect right now, because the more I do, the more I look at and go, you know what? It's not a total disaster. We're doing okay. We're doing okay. What I am noticing is I need to get more values here coming from behind these first pieces, because that's what is working here that's not working there. Got to play detective and figure out what's working where. Okay. All right, let's do another kind of just basic. A little bit of that. Just a little bit of this, just to establish some amount of tone. And I'm going to try to do this kind of methodically from here on out. Methodically meaning I'm going to kind of have a process that I do. And we'll see how that actually turns out, or if it just makes a big smeary mess. Because that's the problem when you're using charcoal, is it's real easy to just make a big smeary mess. We're going to try to use that tortillon. Let's see if we can make something that's not just strictly a huge smeary mess. All right, I can tell already right there on the part I was just working on, I need to use that charcoal pencil because I need darker overall values. Cool. So we'll come back to that in a minute. We're going to add little hints here of that charcoal pencil I was just talking about. Again, I'm immediately getting stuff that's way too dark, but we're going to blend. We're going to blend. We're going to blend it all out. So that method has worked for that row, kind of. Definitely need to go back out and erase. But that method worked decently for that row. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's do a little erasing and see what happens. We're going to add some highlights back into these right here. We're going to add some highlights back into these guys that I just made. I have a feeling I'm going to have to go back and do this again after I do the next row, which is fine. Okay. We have a bit of a dimensional look. The very last thing I'm going to have to do when I'm done with all this is go back and highlight those guys again. So let's get our darks in place where they need to be. And again, we're going to be able to go back in and highlight what needs to be highlighted. Cool. All right. We're getting there. We all knew this was going to be the trickiest part. Getting some sort of value and texture on these guys. All right. We know what to do. Tiny little touch of dark. Tiny little touch of dark. Tiny little touch of dark. Same game we've been playing. All right. Go back and add our highlights in just a moment. Cool. All right. Pull those little shadows behind the overlapping parts a bit. Okay. Cool. I think all we got to do is clean it up. It is not clean at all. What do we clean up? Well, there's a couple things we need to clean up. But again, before our final cleanup, let's really get our darks where they need to be. Okay. All right, I'm going to say at this point we've got our shadows kind of doing what they need to be doing. Let's clean up the highlights, and we're going to call that a day. A little tricky. Oh, look at that. That's all I had to do this whole time. Flip the paper over so your hand isn't smearing everything you already did. Oh, wish I thought of that earlier. Highlight. Good. Need a little bit more shadow right here. Clean up the highlights. All right, not bad. Next layer, one little bit at a time. And last row. Okay. Yeah. Not bad. Not too bad. And I'm actually just going to give the whole thing a little bit of a wipe. Cool. All right. I think we're done with most of that. Let's get rid of all this extra charcoal I just got all over the place. Cool. So I think at this point, all I'm really going to do is add a shadow down here, and that's it. Because this is looking pretty done. Do one last little, I want this line to be more crisp, where the bag turns into the popcorn. We're going to add that, and we're going to blend it out. And since that was the vine charcoal, it'll blend really nice and smoothly. Cool, cool, cool. Let's blend a little bit of that up into each little round part. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think that just kind of helped define the edge a little bit better. You can do the same thing over here. Same type of deal. Cool, cool, cool. All right. So what else? Maybe we're just gonna add a little bit of a shadow down here, and maybe a little bit more darkness over here on this side. Let's see how that blends. Let's see how that blends. Ooh, yeah, I like that. I was trying to make the corner here kind of blend a little bit more. As far as, oh, really, I guess contrast a little bit more. So you saw more of a difference between the dark of the side and the light, or the relative light on the front. We can leave a little bit of reflected light down there. That's fine. We don't need it to be totally dark. That looks all right. Yeah. We're almost done. We are almost done. I think all I want to do is darken up the shadow down here a little bit. That's really it. Use some of this vine charcoal to help it blend a little bit. All right. And as the shadow moves away, it can become more diffuse, meaning just kind of become a little softer. You know what? I'm happy. I was trying to, like, should I add a little table or something? Should I darken up this line? Maybe I should darken that line a little bit. Maybe we should add, oh, you know what? Let's add a teeny touch. Just a little bit of value. Instead of depending on a line to show it, let's let the value show the edge. Right? Just a little touch. Nothing insane. But that way, I don't need to darken that line. I can just let the light that I erase right now stand out for the background. And that little touch of shading I put on it just helps separate the character from the background. Cool. All right, that's it. So let's take a look. Let's put it all together, right? Original version. My version. I think it's definitely the same character. For sure. I think anyone looking at it would know that. If I'm being totally and completely honest, I still like her original version better. But it's cool to, you know, see your idea come to light in a new way, hopefully. So there you go. Pretty cool. All right. That's it for today. Again, I started this video by saying that one of my kindergartners drew her own version of one of my fourth graders' artwork. So I'm going to show you that later this week, because I have one more video of artwork that you guys made. So yeah, that'll be later this week. There you go. It's pretty cool. I like it. All right, that's it for today. See y'all later.